Hey, it's Jeff and Thomas, and it's this week in vCons. This is the week ending May 29th, 2026, and I tell you, if nothing else, this week is ending on a very exciting note because Mr. Thomas over here, he's the star of an article about total recall in the enterprise. Shout out to Jennifer
Thank you,
at
Jennifer.
Innovator News, who wrote this amazing article, which happens to include, yes, I'm in it, Thomas is in it. And most importantly, it's all about vCons.
Yay. Yeah,
And
it was that was a really great experience. And yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for giving us such a great article and really focusing on the enterprise side of vCons. I know that we talk a lot here about where vCons come from, which is smart trunks and communication systems. But the consumer of vCons is the enterprise, or the people who are listening to the people. And I think she really did a good job at really framing that and framing why vCons actually has a pretty decent shot of universal adoption.
yeah, and I think it's that universal adoption, which is, and this is probably one of the very first articles, not in focusing on the telecom space, but specifically, shouting out to the CIOs of the world, people running the large enterprises, medium enterprises, to understand that a change is coming, and it's a vCon, and the way that you can offer total recall to your enterprise and the implications of it is pretty good. And a shout out to Dean Landsman, one of our loyal listeners and fans there. Shout out to you, Dean. And it's a good time. I tell you, this so far we're into 2026, and so far in, I'm still impressed by the growing awareness globally about where vCons are. We're starting to see people building connectors like with Google Meet, which we spoke about that last week. And what's funny was earlier. The day before, I actually met with a gentleman who created that application, and
Fun.
it was just and talking about why the people are doing it is because not only because it's there, because it's needed, and when you look, and I think we're going to see that more and more, that when people look at their workflow, being able to start to connect the dots and then put things in practice really is meaningful.
Yeah. Well, my week in vCon was. So I'm putting the finishing touches on thinking in vCon. It's a general purpose. I've got like a 20-minute, podcast to bring people up to speed on what it is. And there's two reasons why it's needed. And one of the reasons we talk about a lot, which is, we want to listen to your customers. You want to listen. I mean, just be able to. I mean, again. We've always tried to listen to our customers, but once you start working with vCons, you realize you didn't, because of all the things you now know and learn, right? We talk about that quite a bit. But the other thing is, and I'm really touching on this on the thinking of vCon thing, is we work with conversations today, but we don't work on the whole conversation. We work on a fragment. We work on the recording, or we work on the transcript, or the summary, or we see it as a compliance event. The tools that we have today work on fragments of the conversation. And what's happening is, because tools work on fragments and not the whole thing, they can come up with different opinions because they fill in the gaps.
Right. They do.
And so just as a data quality, top of the funnel stuff, just as much as around having high quality audio is important for great transcriptions and great, the more fidelity you have in the capture, the more analysis you have of the past, right? That's absolutely true. This is the exact same data quality issue. If you're trying to listen to customers through transcripts, you're only looking at a fragment of that conversation. You're not looking at the consent. You're not looking at the emotional tone. You're not looking. There's all kinds of other things you're missing because you don't have the whole thing. And so that's the other thing. We need it because we just can't just do a fragment. We have to do the whole thing.
Because it's really about context on the entire content, right? It's not a segment of the content. You want the entire, you want the everything, as opposed to just a small piece of it. And that's where we now have the opportunity to have the entire capture. Because when you can capture the entire conversation, you can link that entire conversation with other entire conversations, and that's everything, I believe. And then when you look to connect those dots, all of a sudden we have a very interesting challenge of when a conversation starts, when a conversation ends, and the modality of it. I understand when you and I have a video chat, we have a time stamp and started this time, stop that time. But you look at text messages, are there even best practices to figure out, when did someone start a conversation? When did it end? Do we
No,
do them
yeah,
15 minutes ago, or is it 3 days ago? And how do we stop that?
yeah, yeah. Mitch and I, when we were back working at 10 Digit, that was exactly the issue that we were going on. Just how do you put a session on top of messaging where there is no session,
Right.
right? And and it does make you sort of feel grateful for the phone because at least it rings when the session starts, and you can hang it up to end it. But for messaging, what is that, right? And that actually is part of the problem. But the good thing about a vCon is you can define what you mean. This is the conversation, and I'm saying for purposes of what I'm about to do, that's the conversation. So it allows you to at least enforce what you think that conversation is. So that's
Have you, by the way, just curious, have you seen some interesting new commercial launches yet in the vCon space, or hints toward it?
well. So I'm not sure if you've been following what Dan's been doing. Dan has a store that got launched in the UK,
Oh,
which
are we talking about a Nimble Ape Dan?
Nimble Ape Dan.
Dan Jenkins, shout out to Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Dan has been such a great supporter of vCons and this community, and to see that he has a commercial offer now in the UK is just great. That's very, very, very good, I think. And I also think we're seeing our first things maybe from India. Some people are starting to like, which is the largest BPO market in the world. So
Yes,
it's not a small thing. So that's also good to hear. And there's and then we have some new deployments happening here at vConic, but we'll have to wait for that to come
So
to
I'm
public.
but maybe we could talk about this without talking about this. So, you were the brain part. You ran the brain trust at Stralid, and Stralid was a lovely, and it continues to be a great testing grounds for what vCons can do, and you get to see them in action, and I'm sure, based on what Vinny said at the conferences, that the implementation has really changed the flow of how your business is done.
Absolutely, right? At so many levels, yeah, absolutely, so many levels.
And so, in terms of going from Stralid to vConic, have you been surprised at some of the companies or people that have reached out to you to bring vCons into their business?
I have. I've been surprised about their horizontality, or they're everywhere. It's a very general purpose thing. Like you're taught as a businessman to think about your customer and his problem.
Right.
This is the core of a business. Who's your customer and who's their problem? And to do that, you have to be very specific about the customer and very specific about the problem. But what's happening here is it's almost like duct tape. You can use duct tape for 1,000 reasons.
Of course you can. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's a very horizontal application. It's a very horizontal solution to a million different, and that it makes it harder to enter a market because you have entering with a platform is divides your troops, right? You can't have a full court press. So at vConic we do have a very strong go to market. We know that our primary partners are phone companies, people who actually are the conversational sources. They're the enterprises, the people who need to listen to their customers, and the BPOs who work as their agents, right? Those are the three people that we think about and go to market with. But
just in case someone's catching this and hearing these terms, BPO is a term which not everyone knows. What is a BPO?
A BPO is a business process outsourcer, and so it's the people who work overseas, sometimes domestically, that run in contact centers that take one first piece of a business and you outsource that. It's a business process outsource. So, for instance, if I had a help desk that I didn't want to run, I didn't have a good help desk in my company, I call Pro Systems, which is a BPO. I say, Pro Systems, would you run my help desk for me? I want to outsource my business process. And so what they would do is they would have a bank of people behind phones that would help you with your help desk. And that's true for recalls and sales and support and any other business process you tend to outsource.
So BPO is
contact center, call center.
So call center. So when someone says they have a call center, that's just a solution, but it's a solution for typically a BPO. And is there a ratio between companies that run their own call centers versus BPOs that exist for companies that need them?
Yeah. So I know some of the stats out here. So there's like 60,000 call centers in the United States.
60,000?
60,000, yeah. And some large percentage of those are outsourced providers, but they all aren't. Sometimes call centers and contact centers are run by the company themselves. The question is, why would you actually use a BPO? Well, because you wouldn't want to. One of the ways of thinking about a BPO is it's the thing that hires agents.
Right.
Agents are it's a difficult job. It's not a very high trained job. Don't get paid a lot. Kind of the high tech equivalent of working at a McDonald's. So a lot of the time you spend running a contact center is hiring and training, right? And that's not something that's really value producing for an enterprise. They just want the customers to be taken care of. They don't want to be experts at staffing it, running it, et cetera. So they very often will outsource that so that the CIO doesn't have to worry about it. Or more not evenly put, but more, strategically put, for someone to point at. I am outsourcing my problem so I can hold someone accountable.
But and this accountability, now bring it back to vCons. Now you have total recall. So go back to the title of the article. So now in a BPO situation, if you're the client and you've outsourced it to a certain BPO, my understanding is that you should be able to literally know every conversation and look at all the details.
You can, and this is something that we're really starting to focus in on at vCon because it's really right in front of our face. So it also changes how BPOs see their future, because today, the line in a BPO is butts in seats. They charge for as many butts are sitting in seats answering calls.
Right.
That's the revenue. That's the revenue plus integration work. Right. Those are the two things they do for a living. Now the problem is that when you have AI, it's replacing the butts in the seats.
Is it replacing it or supplementing it?
Well, so both, right? So it is both. The issue of the BPO today is, how do I provide this AI facility without reducing my revenue, and why should I do it and not the enterprise? So it's a double hit where right. So the vCons have a really nice answer for that, though, and it comes in two flavors. The first is, I don't know if you remember back in the Web 2.0 world, but there was one of the real moves from 1.0 to 2.0 was this movement from doing things to knowing things, where it was the content that was more important than the actual doing it of it.
Okay.
So like that's when Twitter came in, that's when Facebook came in. It was, or that's why MapQuest did so well. Is because it was the data they contained that made them sticky and valuable, not the things.
So that was sort of like the start of the big data, where big data.
That was the start of big data, yeah, and that was sort of like Intel Inside. That was the whole idea of it. And so what we have today is vCons as being the actual content that's important for somebody, right? And that as a unit, not butts in seats, but conversations, allows you to charge for success, for results, but based on an asset, which is a hosting problem, not a doing problem. So it's a better revenue share. And there are actually things you have to do after the vCon's created, like consent. So like one of the biggest problems of the future is, I have a data subject. I want my data. I want to control my data. I want to download it. I want to correct it. I want to ask for its deletion. Who does that? Who are the people who do that? Now, if you're a BPO and your value to the enterprise is, I'm going to be your conversational stream. I will tell you what your customers are saying, and I will keep their conversations and keep them properly. I'll keep them within limits and within consent, and the people can be able to express their GDPR rights around it, and you can hold me accountable for that enterprise. I think that is going to be the BPO of the future, and it really solves a lot of the problems they have today, and I think it keeps them around. If they don't, then why wouldn't the enterprise just use AI and not even outsource anymore? And it's a double hit.
It's a double hit. I randomly get hit up on my emails from all these different people who want to do lead gen for finding us new members to the vCon Foundation, to finding me clients, and I'm just waiting for when I can pay AI agents commission for their success. And whenever I reply that, it always messes up their algorithm, because they don't have a human in the loop in those outbound emails to me, and it's like, well, What if I
No
pay
mind
you?
making, right? Yeah.
They don't know what to do with that. And
Yeah.
the other part about the current BPO model is we have to be aware that one day, Thomas, not that you can have a digital twin, but you may have 15 agents working for you as a person responsible for doing the menial tasks that suck up your day, like calling back for doctor's appointments or sitting on hold with a
Oh
billing
yeah.
issue. And wouldn't it be nice if you could have your own team of folks where you go out and do you handle your to-do list while you're working, so that you're not burning your time, highly valuable time, waiting on hold,
Oh yeah.
contesting a charge that shouldn't
Oh,
be
oh,
there.
oh yeah. I mean, and that I think that's totally true. And I think there's up and down for it. Like, so Jeremy Miller, who is my advisor and the founder of the founder of Blue Sky and the guy who wrote JabberX,
XMPP, yeah.
XMPP. So he actually had done this, and he has robots, agents that work on his behalf, and what he does is he has put them into his whole own little like virtual company. He has a VP of marketing, his VP of sales, and they take on these personalities as they do the work on his behalf. And so that's the upside. I think it's going to work. But the downside is, and we're working on this now in the IETF, is how do you actually start to control the permissions you've given the agent to work on your behalf? Like before that agent's going to go, buy a $500 plane ticket. There should be guardrails. There needs to be some sort of like accounting, because what's happening now is we're just giving them the keys to the car, hoping they come home. And that's not exactly good either, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good work to still be done on all this stuff. And I'm pretty sure that vCons will be the way in which we at least represent what happened.
And I think everyone in the vCon ecosystem should be getting ready for the coming of the vCon boom, because once the RFC comes out or people start to understand this is happening and people start paying attention to what we've been talking about for years, this is going to, I mean, my very low-key projection is that every product officer in 2027 should have vCon support added to the list right now to be prepared for how are they going to deal with vCons, whether it's for importing, exporting, integrating.
Yeah. That, by the way, and that's why I've been working so hard on thinking in vCon work is because it's going to be a boom, and we saw that with SIP. We've seen that with the web. We've seen that with DSL. I mean, like our careers have been marked by that thing. It'll happen again. And you're right. If you're a CIO and there's AI and AI is involved with a person, you're going to want to know that you could audit that, govern that, know what happened before the government knows what happened. So it's just hygiene. It's just, I hate to use this as the example, but I think it's really striking. We built cities before we built their infrastructure, like sewers.
True.
Right. And so we've got AI, but we don't have the infrastructure for AI.
Right.
Right. And the vCons and and all the things that we touch around it from J-Link down into the extensions for MCP. I mean, there's a great toolbox here for actually managing this sewer, this infrastructure that we need, right?
It's the infrastructures that we need and the infrastructures we haven't thought about yet, but having the flexibility of knowing we can build those rails around us as these cities grow. And
we built cars before we put up stop signs.
That's true, but we also had to deal with the horse and carriages for a long time after the cars first came out.
And we did. And it was a transition. My favorite example for this was we put in electricity in houses before plugs.
Go figure that, right?
Right. So if you want to have a clothes iron, you have to call the electrician to wire it in.
Damn! Wow! Well, look, I'm doing some of that wiring myself because I'm working on our fall conference, and I'm looking for people who are plugged into vCons, interested in voice and conversations. And if you're listening to this, to our podcast, and you're curious or have if you're curious about what's happening in the future, engaged in helping to drive that future, don't be shy. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn or just jeff@pulver.com. It'll be me, not my robot, who replies to you. And because I'm actively right now, we're going into the month of June, and this is my time to be content DJ, where I look at the issues. Now, granted, the event's in October, But I really can't wait till October to figure out who's speaking, who's talking, what the issues of the day are.
Like content creation, you love content creation.
I mean, reality is that when I do have my conference schedule matrix, I have a bunch of DIIK sessions, which is damned if I know, because in June, I have no idea what's going to be the hot topic at the end of September going into October. So I leave a few boxes. They're DIIK boxes. But
couldn't you find a different acronym than Dick?
Well, DIIK though, right? Damned if I know. But those are the sessions which sometimes are the most controversial and at the same time most fun. So you never know. So if you, but it's just this is what I've been doing for 29 years, being the content DJ. And hey, it's good. Thomas, thanks for being here. I look forward to our next episode. And if you're watching, and by the way, if you have a product to plug, if you have an idea to share, don't be shy. We're always looking for guests here at This Week at vCons. We're happy that Audrey was one of our first guests. We had Mitch Lieberman as a guest. And the next one could be you, someone chatting with us, someone who's just a fan. Just drop us a line, and we're happy to have you. Thomas, hope you have a great weekend coming up and a great week ahead. And I'll see you next week on This Week in vCons.
You too, Jeff. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.